Legend has it that the blood of 8 virgins can nourish a priceless Taotie beast. My mother was the one who raised it. She gave birth to 3 sons and sent them to the city to lure women back home. My brothers were all quite capable. One after another, they brought women home, strangled them in the ancestral hall, and poured their blood over the Taotie. My mother was pleased. She didn't know the 8 dead women were coming back. My 3rd brother brought home a woman from the city. At the dinner table, my mom held her hand, stroking it repeatedly. "Sweetheart, you're such a beauty. Skin like milk. Larry's lucky to have you. If he ever treats you wrong, just tell me. I'll beat him black and blue." The woman beamed and looked at my 3rd brother. "Larry's been wonderful to me." He smiled back at her with tenderness in his eyes. Then she turned to me. "You've been staring at me. Do you want to say something?" Everyone turned to look at me. My mother was smiling too, but her eyes gleamed like a wolf's. I shrank my neck and shook my head. Inside, I was filled with despair. I knew this woman was going to die. I have 3 older brothers. Altogether, they've brought home 7 sister-in-laws. Their bodies now lie buried in the ancestral hall behind our house. Inside, there's a monstrous fungus we call the meat lingji. Their flesh and blood were used to feed it. When I was little, it was only the size of a thumb. Now it weighs over 60 pounds, white and fatty, with the texture of boiled cow tendon, its surface covered in red, vein-like lumps. This was my mother's Taotie. Legend says that once it's fully grown, it can raise the dead, heal mortal wounds, even grant immortality. But to grow such a Taotie, it must be watered with virgin blood. So ever since my brothers came of age, they've gone to the city hunting for women. From childhood, my mother taught them how to charm girls and make them fall head over heels. That's why, even though our village is poor and deep in the mountains, women still came back with them for love. Among the 3, my 3rd brother was the best at it, handsome and clever. He faked a college degree and played the part of a hard-working young man from a poor background. Of the 7 sisters-in-law we've had, 4 were brought back by him. All of them were beautiful, rich daughters of wealthy families who took pity on him. After they were strangled in the ancestral hall, my mother stripped them of their gold jewelry and sold it for a good price. That's why she favored my 3rd brother. During meals, she'd say privately, "Once the Taotie is grown, Larry deserves the biggest share." My oldest and 2nd brothers would shoot jealous looks at him. The distribution had already been set. My mother got 60%. The remaining 40 went to the brothers. As for me, a girl, I got nothing but chores and beatings. The village chief didn't know about the Taotie. He just thought my mother made money by having her sons scam women in the city. He didn't mind, but pointed at me in confusion. "Kristen's a pretty girl, too. She'll grow up to be a beauty. Why don't you teach her to trick men?" My mother spat out a sunflower seed shell and sneered. "Trick men? Men are too cunning. It's women who are the fools. They're the ones willing to die for love." I didn't know if the woman my 3rd brother brought back was foolish, but I knew she was kind. After dinner, Mom and the brothers went to the backyard to prepare. It was just me and her left. She held my wrist and asked about the scars on my arm. With only a curtain separating us from the backyard, I didn't dare say they beat me. So I said, "I trip a lot. I'm clumsy." She nodded and said she had ointment in her suitcase, and I could go get it if I wanted. I couldn't hold it in. I grabbed her hand and wrote in her palm, "Run." She smiled at me, stroked my head, clearly thinking I was just a kid playing around. From the backyard came the sound of Mom sharpening a blade. She called out, "Kristen, take good care of your sister-in-law." I broke into a cold sweat. No time to write anymore. I leaned close to her ear and whispered, "He tricked you. They're going to." Before I could finish, Mom lifted the curtain and walked in. She was holding a gleaming butcher's knife, her smile just as blinding. "Well now, what are you two whispering about?" Sweat rolled down my face. The woman glanced at me and stood up. "Nothing. She was just telling me some embarrassing stories about her brother when he was little." Mom laughed. "This little rascal's always been mischievous." Then she said, "I had them make up the bed. Go see if you like it." The woman stood up. I grabbed her sleeve instinctively. "Don't go. If you go, you'll die." She looked down at my hand, then gently pried it off and smiled at Mom. "Okay." As soon as she left, Mom grabbed a broom and started beating me viciously. "You worthless thing. If you dare mess this up, I'll kill you myself." They say when Mom was pregnant with me, her belly was sharp, and everyone thought I'd be a boy. But when I was born, I was a girl. She hated that. She wanted to drown me in the urine bucket. But the village's most respected elder, Grandpa Lou, did a divination and said my fate wasn't meant to end yet, that killing me might bring misfortune. So she let me live. From then on, she made me do all the dirty, exhausting work. Whenever she or my brothers were in a bad mood, they could beat or scold me as they pleased. I got used to being covered in bruises. Until then, no one had ever asked if I was in pain. That woman was the first. I wanted to save her. But by the time I managed to escape Mom's beating and ran to the backyard, she was already dead. Third brother had strangled her with a rope so she couldn't scream. Second brother had buried an axe in the back of her head, the blade poking out through her forehead. My limbs went numb. I almost passed out. My 3 brothers, though, acted like it was nothing. They chatted and laughed. Third brother said, "Shame. She treated me better than any of the others." Eldest brother joked, "She loved you so much. Maybe she died willingly." Second brother picked up the butcher knife and began dismembering her body with practiced ease. I curled up in a corner, vision going black. Before long, Mom and my brothers had finished their work. A large bucket of blood was poured into the soil beneath the meat lingji. Immediately, it swelled visibly. The red veins on its surface deepened to a sinister black-red hue. Mom smiled with satisfaction. "Good. In 3 more days, the Taotie will be complete." My brothers grinned. Not far from them, the woman's hacked-up remains lay mixed with pig parts, stinking of blood. That night, I came down with a fever. My head burned. I was delirious. In a daze, I got up for water. As I passed through the courtyard, I bumped into someone. It was third brother. He was squatting before the Taotie. The meat lingji was swelling rapidly, like a fetus about to be born. Maybe I was imagining it, but I could swear I saw faces, women's faces, emerging one by one on its surface. Third brother had his back to me, staring at it, letting out bursts of eerie, delighted laughter. I was terrified. "Third brother?" I called softly. He turned around. I froze. His face was made up in makeup. He was wearing her dress, trying to squeeze his feet into her high heels. When they wouldn't fit, he let out a confused little noise, then calmly picked up the butcher's knife and chopped off his toes. Blood gushed everywhere, but he didn't even flinch. He slipped into the heels with a look of satisfaction. I stumbled back in horror. He looked up at me and chuckled. Somehow, in that moment, his face looked just like hers. Then, like the others before her, all ate. Suddenly, I couldn't tell had he become the Taotie, or had the Taotie become him. He walked toward me in those heels, leaving a trail of bloody footprints. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. He smiled at me and said, "The Taotie is complete." Then, light as a feather, He drifted past me. The sound of heels faded into the dark night. The next day, everyone knew something terrible had happened. Third brother was gone. The meat, Lingji, was gone. My other two brothers were furious, cursing him for being greedy, for taking the Taotie all for himself. But Mom, expression tight, said, Larry was always the most filial. He wouldn't do something like that. Then she looked at me. Kristen, did you see anything last night? Pale-faced, I said I'd had a fever and slept all night. She touched my forehead. I was still a little warm. She eyed my scrawny frame. I couldn't even carry a sack of rice, let alone move a 60-pound Taotie. She said, go call Grandpa Lou. Let him divine where Larry's gone. Grandpa Lou arrived. As soon as he stepped into the courtyard, he frowned. Why does it reek of blood here? Mom smiled awkwardly. Larry came home last night. We killed a pig to welcome him back. He asked, did he come back alone? Mom hesitated just a second, then replied, yes, just him. The truth of the Taotie was too horrific. She feared he wouldn't help if he knew. Grandpa Lou nodded and said no more. Then he cast his hexagrams. Mom asked eagerly, so, where is Larry now? Grandpa Lou closed his eyes, unreadable. After a while, he opened them and said, Seventh Auntie, your boy will come back tonight. Mom lit up with joy, clapping my two brothers. See? I told you. Larry's the most loyal. Then she asked me to walk Grandpa Lou out. Once outside the courtyard, he suddenly grabbed me and whisked me away to a quiet spot. Crouching down, he looked me in the eye. Kristen, I saved your life once, so you need to tell me the truth. Your third brother didn't come home alone last night. Someone was with him. Who was it? He had saved my life. If it hadn't been for him persuading Mom to keep me, I'd have been drowned in that urine bucket. Over the years, he pitied me and often gave me food. He said Mom was blinded by her preference for sons. If I were his daughter, he'd never have treated me that way. Remembering his kindness, I broke into sobs and told the truth. Third brother brought home a new sister-in-law last night. Grandpa Lou's expression darkened. That woman's dead, isn't she? I knew I couldn't lie to him. Tears streaming down my face. I nodded. Grandpa Lou stood up, sighing over and over. No wonder the hexagram said your third brother would definitely return tonight. But something felt off. Now I understand. The one coming back isn't your third brother at all. I remembered how he'd smiled at me last night in those high heels, and a chill ran down my spine. I sobbed even harder. Grandpa Lou looked at me with pity. Kristen, you're a good child, but the ones who've sinned are your own blood. That means you'll be dragged into this too. Grandpa Lou wanted to save me. Here, wear this peachwood talisman. Tonight, lie in bed and no matter what, don't open your eyes before the rooster crows. If you sense anything approaching, throw the talisman at it. Understand? That night, my mom sat with the whole family waiting for Larry to return. But as time passed, a cold wind swept through the hall and we all grew sleepy. My two older brothers said considerately, Mom, we'll wait up for Larry. You and Kristen should get some rest. My mom wanted to wait herself, but her eyes kept shutting, so she agreed. I walked toward the backyard, but then turned back. I wanted to warn my brothers not to open the door for Larry. But just as I reached the front hall, I overheard them whispering. The knockout drug worked? Relax. Mom and Kristen will sleep till morning. My heart dropped. So they drugged us at dinner. But I'd had a fever and felt sick to my stomach, so I went outside after dinner and threw up. That's why I was still awake now. What were they planning? When Larry gets back, hit the back of his head with the axe. Be careful not to damage the Taotie. I called a driver to wait at the village entrance. We'll take the Taotie and leave right away. Mom's gonna lose her mind, but serves her right. That old hag never treated us fairly. As long as Larry's alive, we'll always be under his thumb. The more I listened, the more terrified I became. They were going to kill Larry? Suddenly, second brother asked quietly, "What was that sound in the backyard?" My heart skipped. I turned to run, but the next second brother grabbed me by the collar from behind. "You wait here for Larry," he told my eldest brother. "I'll deal with this little brat first." He dragged me to the backyard, clamped a huge hand around my throat, and started squeezing. I kicked and struggled, but the air was running out. My limbs went limp. Then, a noise came from the room behind us. In the moonlight, a silhouette appeared by the window. Second brother turned impatiently. "Didn't I tell you to stay in the front hall?" I couldn't speak. My eyes were wide open, frozen in horror, staring over his shoulder at Larry's rotting face. Rain started falling. Thunder cracked across the sky. Second brother's grip loosened, and I collapsed to the ground. Pain shot through my throat. Everything went black. I didn't care anymore. One thought filled my mind: run. I crawled toward the nearest woodshed, barred the door, and curled up on a pile of firewood, trembling all over. Outside, it was quiet. Only the soft patter of rain on the eaves. No sound from my brothers. No sound from Larry. It felt like any other ordinary night. But the next second, the sharp clack of high heels echoed through the yard. My heart jumped. The footsteps drew closer to the shed. "Sister, is that you?" I heard Larry's voice. I clutched Grandpa Lou's peachwood talisman, holding my breath. Larry never called me sister. He called me Kristen. Brat. Worthless girl. The one who called me sister was the woman he brought back last night. Just like Grandpa Lou said, Larry had returned, but it wasn't really him. I gripped the talisman, ready to throw it as soon as the door creaked. But 1 minute passed, then 2. The high heels kept pacing outside, back and forth, never coming closer. He was circling. He couldn't find the door. I counted in my head. Soon, the rooster would crow. Ghosts can't face sunlight. If Larry couldn't find me, he'd leave. Sure enough, the footsteps faded into the distance. He gave up. I exhaled, flooded with the relief of having survived. But then I felt that breath come right back to my face. No, it wasn't mine. Someone was breathing just inches from me. In the dark, I heard a giggle. "Hee hee! Found you." Blood rushed to my head. I instantly hurled the talisman, but my heart sank. Earlier, when second brother tried to strangle me, I'd struggled so hard that the talisman had cracked. Now, as I threw it, it split in two. One half flew forward, the other stayed in my hand. I blacked out. At dawn, I was woken by my mom's furious shouting. The drugged food had knocked her out till morning. When she woke up, all 3 of her sons were gone. Then she found me curled up in a corner. She yanked me up and demanded to know what I'd seen last night. I shook my head desperately, but she didn't believe me. She grabbed a broom and started beating me. I couldn't take it anymore and sobbed. Maybe they left together. She collapsed onto the ground. She had birthed 3 sons, envied by the whole village, and now not one could be relied on. I feared she'd come to her senses and beat me again, so I slipped out and ran to Grandpa Lou's. When he asked what happened, I told him everything. When he heard that the peachwood talisman had split in half, his expression turned grim. He brought out a mirror, sprinkled incense ash on it, and shook it off. "Kristen, take a look." I leaned in and saw my face pale as death. My eyes full of blood-red veins, and within those veins, squirming black shapes like tiny worms. I froze in terror. "Kristen, you've been cursed. That talisman was specially made for you." Your birth date is carved on the back. If you throw it at evil, it can't hurt you. But you only threw half, so it didn't fully work. Now half its soul is clinging to you." I stood there trembling. Grandpa Lou glued the talisman back together and hung it around my neck. "Your third brother will come back again tonight. This time, you must throw the whole thing at him, or you won't live to hear the rooster crow." I was shaking so hard, even my knees were knocking together. Grandpa Lou sighed and brought me a coat. "Your mother caused all this, and now you're the one suffering. Look at you, wearing nothing but a thin shirt in this cold. Take this jacket." It was a small, well-fitted jacket, light blue, with pale trim. Once I put it on, Grandpa Lou looked at me with even more tenderness. He patted my head. "Kristen, once this is all over, come live with me. Be my daughter. How about that?" I nodded. Grandpa Lou gave me a few more warnings. First, with the curse still on me, I was half a ghost. I couldn't look in mirrors or I'd get hurt. He'd sprinkled ash on the mirror earlier to protect me. Second, if anyone strange tried to talk to me, no matter what they said, I couldn't trust them. I held the talisman close and carefully returned home, expecting a beating from my mom. But she was sitting quietly in the courtyard. Across from her sat a Taoist priest, doing a divination. He looked young, with a strikingly handsome face, more handsome even than my third brother, whom I'd once thought the best-looking man I'd ever seen. After finishing the divination, the priest told my mom, "Last night, your youngest son took the other two, but tonight, they'll all return." My mom was half skeptical, half happy. So they ran off with the Taotie, but then grew a conscience and decided to come back to their mother? The priest put away the divination sticks, voice vague. "Fate is mysterious. My skills are limited. I can only see so much." My mom scowled. "Good. Let them come. I'll deal with them myself." As the priest left, he suddenly noticed me in the corner. His eyes lit up. He blocked my path. "Little one, I have something to ask you." I lowered my head, trying to slip past. "My mom makes all the decisions. Ask her." The priest shook his head. "Your mother won't tell me the truth, but I can see you know a lot. Only if you tell me can I help you." I remembered Grandpa Lou's second rule, don't believe strangers. I darted around him, trying to escape. But somehow, the priest reached out and snatched the peachwood talisman from around my neck. I panicked. "Give it back." He held it high. "Tell me what this is, and I will." He was tall. I couldn't reach it. I gritted my teeth. "Haven't you seen a talisman before? Everyone in our village wears them for protection." I wanted him to think it was just a trinket and return it. But he gave a cold laugh. "Talisman?" He looked down at me. "Little girl, if you don't tell me the truth, you won't live through the night." I stopped trying to grab it and crossed my arms. "Don't act like you care about me. If you really wanted to help, would you have lied to my mom earlier?" Seeing I'd calmed down and might talk, the priest softened his tone. "Your mother's sins are too great. She must face retribution. Anyone who interferes with her karma will suffer. But you're different. You can still be saved." But I wasn't truly calm, I'd only been pretending. As he thought about how to convince me, I suddenly leapt up and lunged for the talisman. I knocked him off balance, but his reflexes were better than I expected. He tightened his grip on the talisman and pinned me down with one hand. I looked up and glared at him. Until now, I'd avoided his gaze. This was our first time locking eyes. He froze. "You're cursed?" I realized my eyes still looked the same, veined with red and crawling with darkness. He'd noticed. He stared hard at the talisman and quickly saw the crack. "Broken in two?" He turned to me. "What exactly happened last night? I clenched my lips and turned my head away. I remembered every word Grandpa Lu told me and resolved not to say a single word more to the Taoist. "Let me guess," the Taoist said grimly. "Someone gave you this talisman and told you if you feel something approaching in the middle of the night while you're asleep, throw it in that direction." I froze. "And they also told you the reason you were cursed today is because you only threw out half last night, so you only drove away half the ghost. That if you want to survive tonight, you have to throw the complete one, right?" I gritted my teeth even harder. The Taoist suddenly shouted, "Let me tell you, you should be glad you only threw half. Because this isn't even peachwood, it's pine." I was stunned. I knew peachwood wards off evil, but pine? The Taoist seemed to catch my confusion. He lowered his voice. "Peachwood repels spirits. Pinewood attracts them. There's a saying, never plant the 5 yin trees around your home, and pine is the leader of those 5. It's the kind they plant in front of graves. Pine is the medium between humans and ghosts. You wore it all day and then threw it at a ghost, of course it could latch onto you directly." I couldn't stop trembling. I had sworn I wouldn't believe anything the Taoist said, no matter what. But now, a crushing sense of helplessness swept over me. The sun was sinking fast toward the west. Darkness was coming. The Taoist glanced at the setting sun. He knew time was running out. He turned quickly and told me, "There's no time. You have to do exactly what I say if you want to survive the night. Take this bag. Use what's inside. Before sunset, face it toward yourself. After dark, face it toward others." With that, the Taoist turned and left. He seemed to vanish into thin air, like he knew Lightfoot Kung Fu or something. I stood there holding the bag, breathing deeply. I cautiously reached in to see what was inside. I shouldn't have. The moment I touched it, my heart sank. Inside the bag was a mirror. 2/3 of the sun had already dipped behind the mountains. In 10 minutes, it would be completely dark. My mom was in high spirits, cracking sunflower seeds and hitting me with a broom, telling me to clean the courtyard properly to welcome her 3 sons home. I kept my head down and swept, my legs shaking uncontrollably. I now had 2 things in my arms, the talisman from Grandpa Lu and the mirror from the Taoist. If Grandpa Lu was right, throwing the talisman would save me and the mirror would kill me. If the Taoist was right, the mirror would save me and the talisman would kill me. Who should I trust? "Kristen, don't panic. Think carefully." I told myself to recall everything that had happened and find the right path. I didn't know how long I stood there. Eventually, darkness fell completely. My mom sat by the front gate, peering out into the night. Why aren't they back yet? Was that Taoist telling the truth or not? After complaining, she turned around and suddenly spotted 3 dark figures standing faintly in the courtyard. Even in silhouette, after all these years, she knew them instantly. Those were her 3 sons. She stood up, delighted. "You rascals finally came back. Thank goodness. You're home. You're home." "Hungry." Kristen made rice. "Come, eat." The 3 figures began moving. I stood beside my mom, peachwood talisman in one hand, mirror in the other. My mom was all smiles. From her perspective, her sons were walking toward her. But I was shaking uncontrollably, because in the mirror I held, I saw a different scene. My 3 brothers were indeed standing there, but behind them were 8 women, 1 behind my eldest brother, 2 behind the second, and 5 behind the third. When third brother was alive, he was proud of bringing home 5 of the 8 women. He never imagined that's what would get him killed first. The brothers walked slowly, the women following silently behind. Eldest brother led the way. As he got closer, Mom finally sensed something was wrong. Eldest brother's gait was odd. He stumbled with every step. That movement, she'd seen it before. Her face changed. She remembered. The woman eldest brother brought back had a limp. That was her walk. Now her ghost was right behind him. She took a step, and he mirrored it exactly. Then second brother appeared. Behind him were two women. They began speaking. "It's her, isn't it?" "Yes, I remember that old witch." Second brother started muttering too, switching between two tones like he was talking to himself. It was creepy as hell. "We didn't get her last time, but it doesn't matter. Tonight, we're taking her." My mom looked at him, her voice trembling. "Second, what are you saying?" But she didn't finish her sentence, because third brother walked up. His once handsome face was now a rotten mess. Maggots crawled in and out of his eye sockets. But still, he stood before Mom and smiled. The 5 women behind him tried to speak, but the one in the center raised her hand to stop them. She was the last woman he'd brought home. The others had long been buried beneath the Taotie. Only her body, mixed with pig remains, had yet to be buried, still lying in a corner of our yard. It showed she was the strongest of the 8. Now she stepped forward, smiled at Mom, and said, "Hello, Auntie." It was the same thing she'd said when they first met. But now, it came from third brother's mouth, grinning with exposed teeth and bone. Mom began to tremble. She finally understood. "You're not my sons. You killed them. You murdered all 3 of my sons. You damned cursed bitches." The 8 women surrounded her, raising axes in perfect unison. So did my 3 brothers. "You're going to kill me!" Mom screamed out of her mind with terror. "You're my sons! How could you do this to me?" One of the women sighed. "Auntie, you murdered 8 innocent women. Don't you think your life should pay for theirs?" My mother's sanity returned for a second. She shrieked, "In this rotten world, what good is it to be a woman? Better to die early and reincarnate." Then she turned and saw me. She pointed at me, eyes blazing. "I never should have given birth to you. A woman's only purpose is to suffer. Fooled by something like love, every bit of pain you go through, you deserve it." She screamed herself hoarse, then covered her face and started sobbing. "No one suffered like me. I suffered the most." For the first time, I began to understand her story. She'd been sold from a mountain village dozens of kilometers away to a man in his 50s who beat her constantly. She was cold, hungry, overworked. If she dared talk back, he beat her within an inch of her life. Eventually, that man's cousin couldn't bear to watch anymore. He tried to stop him, and sometimes secretly helped my mom with chores. She was touched. It was the first time she ever felt cared for. So when the cousin tore her clothes off, she didn't resist. She got pregnant again and gave birth to second brother. When he turned 3, he looked just like the cousin. That was how their affair got exposed. In front of the whole extended family, the cousin pretended to be the victim, blamed everything on my mom. Then he married into another village. Mom got locked in the pigsty. The old man chained her up and tried to kill her slowly. But a university student teaching in the village saved her. From then on, things seemed to turn around. The old man fell off a mountain and died. His relatives aged and died too. Mom inherited the house. That student taught by day and came to visit Mom at night. He was handsome, cultured, kind, and gentle. That was the happiest time of her life. She had my third brother, then got pregnant with me. But just before I was born, the student left. He told the school principal, "Teaching won't save this place," and returned to the city. Soon, he married and had kids. Still, my mom loved him for years. She believed he had loved her too, only he couldn't stay because she was poor. That's why she wanted to raise the Taotie. Once she had money, he'd come back. That's why she doted on third brother. He looked the most like the student, a symbol of her happiest days, and that's why she hated me. She believed I ruined everything. Just like her own father, who demanded a divorce when he learned she was born a girl. Her sobs slowly faded. The women circled her, raising their axes. I heard her screams, her cries, her desperate begging. I heard the blood-soaked wind howl. It had howled in this mountain village for centuries. I didn't know how long it lasted. Eventually, the women scattered. My mom was gone. In her place were only blood and bones, just like the women she had chopped up and fed to the Taotie. After avenging themselves, the women all turned in unison. They all looked at me, but they didn't approach. They just stared in silence for a long time. The lead woman glanced at the sky. Dawn was breaking. She turned toward the back gate. The others followed. They brushed past me and vanished into the darkness. Moments later, the first rooster crowed in the distance. I collapsed to the ground, drenched in cold sweat. Relief stole every ounce of my strength. I fell asleep right there, on the blood-soaked earth. I didn't know how long I'd been unconscious. I only vaguely felt someone shaking me in the dark. Wake up. Wake up. I opened my eyes and saw Grandpa Lu's face. Around him were many villagers, some pointing and whispering, others sighing repeatedly. They said that our family must have been robbed by out-of-town bandits last night. All 3 men were killed. The old woman's body vanished, and only a little girl hiding behind the rice jar had survived by sheer luck. Grandpa Lu saw the talisman in my hand was intact and let out a long sigh of relief. He looked at me kindly. "Are you hurt anywhere?" Looking at his loving face, I couldn't hold back anymore. I cried out, "Dad!" Grandpa Lu froze. Then tears welled up in his eyes as he answered, "Yes." He stood up and turned to the villagers. "We don't know if the bandits will ever be caught, but life must go on. Kristen is still young and needs someone to care for her. If you trust me, I'll adopt her." Grandpa Lu was highly respected in the village. Once he spoke, everyone voiced their agreement. There's no one kinder than Grandpa Lu. If Kristen is taken in by him, we're all relieved. It's just right, too. He's been alone since his wife and daughter passed. Kristen, you better be a good daughter to your new father. And just like that, I was adopted by Grandpa Lu and started calling him Dad. He treated me well. As soon as we got home, he busied himself making me food. You must be starving. How about some pork rib soup? It's your favorite. I nodded, then hesitated. But pork ribs are expensive, aren't they? Grandpa Lu shook his head and smiled. It's fine. Your dad's about to strike it rich. Once that happens, we'll leave this place and live a good life in the city. I smiled too. Really? You're amazing, Dad. That night, Grandpa Lu took me to the cemetery behind the mountain. My brothers' bodies had been buried there. As we walked, I asked him, "Dad, weren't you afraid those women would hurt me last night?" Grandpa Lu shook his head, sure of himself. "No. Corpse spirits only seek revenge on the living. They won't hurt their own kind." I nodded. "I see." At the cemetery, Grandpa Lu brought out his tools and began digging up my brothers' graves. Soon, their gruesome corpses were exposed to the air. Grandpa Lu didn't flinch, just bent down and searched carefully. "That's strange," he muttered. "It should be on one of them." I watched him sweat and labor, then slowly raise what was in my hand. "Grandpa Lu," I said softly, "is this what you're looking for?" He turned around and saw what I held, a thumb-sized meat lingji, milky white and glowing faintly under the moonlight. His face instantly lit up with joy. He stepped toward me. "Yes, that's it." But after a few steps, he froze. The next second, terror washed over his face. "Girl, what did you just call me?" I smiled. "Grandpa Lou." I looked at him, shaking all over, and beamed. "What's wrong? Are you disappointed I'm still Kristen?" He stared at me as the cemetery's ghost lights flickered over his face. "When did you realize something was off?" I pointed to the jacket I was wearing. "When you gave me this coat." The truth was, the night before, as I debated between the talisman and the mirror, I'd leaned toward trusting Grandpa Lou. After all, he'd watched me grow up. The Taoist was a complete stranger. Besides, the Taoist said the talisman would let ghosts possess me. But what reason would Grandpa Lou have to let those 8 women possess me? The Taoist's logic didn't hold. Just when I decided to trust Grandpa Lou and toss the mirror, my eyes fell on the coat he gave me. It was a little girl's old jacket, clean but clearly many years old. 1,000 details flashed across my mind like lightning in the night sky. That was when I realized the Taoist had been right. "You gave me a little girl's old coat, but you live alone, so I figured you used to have a daughter. She's gone now." Grandpa Lou looked at me. The love in his eyes had completely vanished. That love had never been meant for me. So, I thought back to the first night. Larry's high heels had clearly walked away, but the ghosts that appeared in front of me made no sound. The most reasonable explanation is, there were 2 spirits that night. One was the vengeance spirit formed by the 8 women through the Taotie. The other was your daughter. It was your daughter who came to me. That explains everything. The pine talisman had my birth date engraved, but it was also your daughter's. We were born on the same day, same month. I was the perfect vessel for her. Like you told me, spirits won't harm their own. Once you realized she had possessed me, you knew the other 8 wouldn't hurt her. She'd survive the night. I asked the neighbors, and learned the Taoist had been asking around about the Taotie. You must have heard him, then thought of our family. That's when you guessed the Taotie was at our house. So you came up with the perfect plan, let the spirits raised by the Taotie wipe out my whole family. Then you adopt me, already possessed by your daughter, and take the Taotie for yourself. That way, you'd get both the person and the prize. Unfortunately, in your grand scheme, I was the most crucial piece, and I broke free. That ruined your whole game. I raised the Taotie in my hand. My brother's maggot-infested corpses began to tremble and stand. They surrounded Grandpa Lou, laughing madly. The women hadn't left. They stood hand in hand behind my brothers, closing in around him. When they finally stepped back, Grandpa Lou was dead, his eyes wide open in terror. He'd been scared to death. "Grandpa Lou, let me tell you one last secret," I said softly. "The Taotie wasn't taken by Larry that first night. I took it. To survive in a house like mine, I couldn't be as simple as I looked. That night, after Larry walked out in heels, I looked at the ancestral hall. The swollen Taotie had shrunk back down to a thumb-sized lingji. I knew right away the 8 women had left it and followed Larry. That's why the lingji had reverted to its original state. So I secretly hid it on me. Something told me that night it might save me someday. And sure enough, it did. I used it to summon the 8 women and defeat the far more powerful Grandpa Lou. Now, everyone was dead. The 8 women stood silently around me, but I wasn't afraid. The wind, thick with blood, circled the cemetery but couldn't escape. If even the wind was bound to this village, how could I be any different? Still, there was something I could do to end a tragic fate. The 8 women slowly approached. I lit a bonfire, hugged the Taotie to my chest, and jumped into the flames. Fire curled around me. I knew I wouldn't survive, but I was taking the Taotie with me. In the blaze, maybe it was a hallucination, but I saw the 8 women gather around me. Hand in hand, they lifted me out of the fire. They carried me out. In my final moment of clarity, I saw the flames devour the Taotie completely. The 8 women disappeared with it. I didn't know how long I'd been out. When I woke, I was in a little cabin in the mountains. The door opened. It was the Taoist. He had changed clothes. No more robes. Just a white shirt and jeans. He looked like a student from the city. He brought me a bowl of porridge. The smell was irresistible. I didn't care whether he meant harm or not. I devoured the whole bowl. After wiping my mouth, I looked at him. You were here for the Taotie, weren't you? His method for saving me had worked. Using the mirror on myself before dark drove away the spirit clinging to me. Using it on others after dark revealed what haunted them. Though he saved me, he'd been snooping around about the Taotie, so his motives weren't pure. Don't bother anymore. I burned it. If you wanted to make a fortune off it, it's too late. The Taoist paused, then smiled. I do like money, he said with a laugh. But not Taotie money. There's a legend. A mother raised a Taotie and used it to bring her dead daughter back to life. That's how the myth of the Taotie's power bringing flesh and bone back to life began. Its value skyrocketed. But what people don't know is, that girl wasn't really her daughter. Once someone becomes a corpse spirit, all reason is gone. That mother was eventually strangled by the girl she revived. Their whole village was slaughtered by the corpse spirit. I frowned. If no one knew that, how do you? The Taoist patted his chest, because I was the one who finally put that spirit down. I stared at him, confused. He looked younger than my 3rd brother, but the story he told sounded ancient. Not important, he waved it off. The Taotie is just a vessel for raising spirits. It can't revive anyone, only breed monsters that slaughter everyone. I murmured. But the 8 women this time, they weren't like that. They lifted me out of the fire. They saved me. Ah, yes. The Taoist nodded. This batch of spirits was different. The reason was the last woman. Her sister was one of the women your brother brought home. She gave her life for revenge. I froze. That night, she pried my hand off and walked to the backyard, a faint smile on her lips. She had known all along what would happen to her. That woman uncovered the truth about your mother's Taotie. She vowed to become a vengeful ghost and make your family pay in blood. But before she came, she donated all her money to a temple, climbed 99 steps, and made a sincere wish before Buddha. The Taoist placed a piece of incense-scented paper in front of me. The woman's handwriting was elegant and neat. Her wish read, "Let the wicked die, let the good live. Let no innocence suffer." A tear rolled from my eye and landed on the word good. You were the only one who tried to save her before she died. Though you failed, your kindness left a mark on fate. So even after becoming a spirit, she wouldn't harm you, only protect you. That first night, when she searched the house for me, it was because she knew I was the only innocent one. She was afraid of killing the wrong person. I didn't want to cry anymore, but the tears wouldn't stop. The Taoist waited quietly until I finished crying. Then he asked, "What do you wish for? Maybe I can grant it." I wiped my tears. "I want them not to die." He shook his head. "Their lifespans have already run out. They can't be revived. But because they saved you and destroyed the Taotie, they accumulated virtue. They've entered the cycle of reincarnation and will have good fortune in their next lives. So wish something for yourself." I thought for a moment. I want to forget everything and start over. I want to go somewhere far away, where I can eat till I'm full have hot water to bathe in, and be loved by someone. The Taoist smiled. Then so be it. He put his hands in his pockets and turned to leave. Wait, I said. Immortal, what's your name? He didn't turn back. Just left 2 words. Luke Dawson.